We have a couple more hours of warm weather before we start to see this cold weather push through, and then we're going to get a good idea of how severe this weather is going to be, if not already getting a good idea of a lot of these tornadoes around Illinois and the Michigan region. Right now, we're looking at the temperature change over the last 24 hours, looking at a cloudy sunset. We saw those overnight lows hanging out in those 60s, still fighting with that southwesterly flow. Got all the way up into those 90s, pushing that record, and then we're cooling off pretty gently right now, but it's going to get pretty cold right now, dropping about another 30 degrees, 72 in San Angelo. Everybody else joining us in a combination of the 70s and 60s, and the coldest areas are giving us a good idea of where that cold air is making its way in. Again, 75 up there in Sterling City, 70 down in Junction, 67 off to the southwest, 65 as well. Good 10 degrees spread right now, but it's flipped because we're getting a good idea of where the moisture pockets are as this cold air makes its way through. A lot of variable winds across the region. Look at these humidity values again, coming up a few degrees, still seeing those colder below freezing dew points off to the west, and then again a good 50-degree dew point off to the east. Pretty stark contrast even when we're talking about humidity. Now this is what we're really tracking when we're talking about where the severe weather is going to go. Upper level pattern, talking to the wife about this one, getting a good idea of the severe weather that's going to push through. We'll see this ridging make its way into the 80s. Now watch how slow and deep this storm is going to make its way across the United States. Really takes aim there at Central California, makes its way slowly across the Rocky Mountains despite that high pressure that's supposed to be there. Really takes aim over the Concho Valley, then moves off to the northeast near the Hudson Bay. Right behind it, another monster storm with some pretty loose gradient ridging, and we'll see how warm things get before the next round of severe weather makes its way through. We're tracking the moisture with this one as we continue to see that dry air slide in right behind it. The moisture exchange is going to really pull it back up from the Gulf. Then right behind it, we're looking at the next round of moisture making its way through. You can see this air not quite as dry. We'll see how warm it gets because those are the ingredients we need when we're talking about severe weather to lift up into the atmosphere. Speaking of that lift, the coldest air right now, we're still seeing that stark contrast. Look, not that far away in Oklahoma, 42 degrees, even up there in the Panhandle, while we're still seeing a stark 30-degree difference all the way down here in San Angelo, 5 degrees up there in Montana. Some pretty cold air making its way down from the north. As a result of it, the severe weather outlook really targeting this part of the Ohio River Valley, and the satellite giving you a good idea. That's a giant tornado warning, while they're still seeing a lot more tornado warnings and watches issued for that part of Michigan. Again, getting a closer look here at the Concho Valley, still seeing a lot of low clouds push through. You saw in the time lapse. Now the Futurecast is going to give you a better idea of where these storms are really going to try to pop up across the region Wednesday morning when that coldest air pushes through. You can see that subtropical jet really staying over the Concho Valley. This storm right here takes aim at the Panhandle. We'll see if it doesn't put those fires out. That's going to see a lot of snow as a result. Then you see that dry line push through by Thursday. Look how clear this gets. It's going to slowly warm us back up, but we'll see how strong this cold air, because it's going to stick around for a while. Switching to those winds tomorrow, that's the biggest warning. We're going to see them push out of the northwest very early in the morning. Nice and cold, 25 miles per hour. Moving to the northeast as the afternoon lunchtime hour moves in. Then things calm back down before we warm back up. So tonight dropping back down 30 degrees into those 40s. Then tomorrow, not that much warmer, only into those 50s. Pretty cold air making its way through. We're going to hold on to those temperatures one more night as we make our way back down into those 40s. Then we're only up into the 60s. Things start to warm up gradually as we make our way towards the weekend. We see us into the 70s and the 80s. Then we get a good idea of that next low pressure system making its way in as we drop back down into the 70s with those lows going from those 30s up to those 50s, then back down into those 40s. Stay tuned up more up at the break. You're watching KSAN.